Deroy Crews here. Big D Crews. Art and music. Best thing in the world is art and music. Um, and I think that this this whole fascination with the guitar market is for fornicators, is for people who also sleep with a lot of women, men who sleep with a lot of women. And you'll notice that the women don't really have this. Like, how many women do you know that are excellent guitar players that have a huge collection of guitars? I don't think that a lot of women do that. I think it's a man thing. And just like men will be married and brag to everybody about another woman, talk about another woman, okay, while their wife is sitting outside in the car, okay? Men, it's a man thing to want to just ravish all these guitars and know and compare them to each other. When you have one or two or three guitars at home that are you, that make you. And if I had as many guitars as Slash, I would probably be running a music store. Because, let me tell you something. Let's get one thing straight. First of all, how ridiculous it is. I'll show you the video in a second that I'm talking about. This is the second time I've seen this video. And I also seen him in Guitar Player magazine. They showed his entire collection. But he has enough Les Pauls, okay, to end the war in Ukraine. I mean, he has enough Les Pauls to feed all the needy children in Africa. He has so many Les Pauls. He could give everybody who is fascinated with Les Pauls and wants to take guitar lessons. He could give them one, or give them one real cheap. You know, just charge them for the taxes. And give them, each a guitar. And still have a huge collection. This guy has a warehouse where he keeps his guitars. Okay, he has a warehouse where he keeps his guitars. And when he travels, from what I hear in the video, when he travels, he takes up to 10 guitars with him when he travels. He's only going to use 2 or 3. But just in case, he takes 10. Okay? He has a rig that holds 10 guitars. And I think that it's a marketing scheme to talk about it. To show it off. It's a marketing scheme, and I think it's a, I mean, some people, they go out and they do things, and then they have their doggy, their little doggy or little chihuahua or whatever, like Fluffy. Okay, Fluffy the comedian, okay? His chihuahua, I think he has 2 of them. They go with him everywhere he goes. Okay? When he's not on stage doing comedy, he's got two chihuahuas in his hand. If you need him to bend down and pick anything up or whatever, it's going to be like, here, hold my chihuahua. Okay? He's got those chihuahuas with him at all times. And a lot of people like that are lonely, so they have that kind of relationship with their guitars. They have a warehouse full of guitars, and I don't know. I don't know. And I noticed too that men that don't have strong relationships with women, and men that are not married. And you know, a lot of musicians are not married, and this is one of the reasons. My wife and I used to fight when I was, when we were traveling musicians. We used to fight all the time. You know, my ex-wife, that is. We used to fight a lot because for everything that I spent money on musically, she had to spend $2,000 more musically. And for everything that I had, she had to have more, And I learned back in the day being married that just give me a guitar that can keep up with the band. That's all I want. Give me a guitar that can keep up with the band. That's all I want, because this woman is going to drive me nuts. And I remember she and I had a big fight one time, so bad that I ended up spending the night with a friend. And I came home 2 or 3 days later, and there was a Fender sitting there at the kitchen table waiting for me. No. I sat down and we talked. Well, we talked before I came home. That's why I came home. And I came home, and she walked out with a guitar case. And I'm like, what's this? And I think I had a birthday or something on them 3 days that I was away. I think it might have been my birthday. But she walked in with a Fender. And it was a cheap Fender. I mean, it was really cheap. But I think was it a Fender? It was not a Fender. I think it was another Crews guitar. It was a cheap brand. It was like I think it was a Crews guitar, or I don't even think it had the brand name on the headstock. I think the brand name was on the back of the headstock next to the serial numbers. Okay. I want to go back to that. I'll get to Slash in a minute. But this guy here, he's talking about if you had one guitar, what would it be? To him, it's the Telecaster. Now back to my story. She put that guitar in my lap. She wanted to surprise me with this guitar because she felt really bad about all the money that she spent, and I decided to say, F it. I'm not spending no money on myself. Go ahead. And we fought, and she always had to be the bigger fighter. So I would walk out. I would just take off. But that guitar, she put it in my hands. And at that time, I was a Strat person. I was a serious Strat person. I thought that because, first of all, the way the Strat felt in my hands, and because of their lightweight, and I had this fascination with, the neck of the Strats, and I never been a big fan of Fender Strats because Fender Strats sound too, what's the word? Sound too documented. They sound like this is the sound and this is the Fender sound, and you know. And I've had in my possession, from hanging out with other musicians, I've had a number of Fender Strats in my hand, and they all sound the same to me. Fender is Fender, okay? Matter of fact, I play Fenders that ain't Strats, and they sound like Fender Strats, okay? Maybe that's something wrong with me, okay? No, I didn't go through all the pickups and check every pickup. Now, however, I did when this old friend of mine let me borrow like half his guitar collection. Well, it wasn't half. No, he had just as many guitars as Slash, but he was selling these guitars. That's the difference. These guitars were down in his basement collecting termites. Okay, he was selling these guitars. He was trying to get rid of them. And one of the reasons why he would get rid of these guitars is because his family lived clear across the country. And he wanted to keep up with the flight would it cost him. He was a retired man. He wanted to keep up with it cost him to do the flights to go see his son and his wife, okay? Him and his wife to go see his son and his wife and spend time there with them and the grandchildren, you know. And so they would fly clear across the country, like way out in, I don't know, Seattle or something, to see his son. And it was costly, so he was selling guitars. But he had every guitar you could think of that was 5 years, okay, old and under. Like, he had every guitar you could think of because people would ask him to fix guitars, and he would say, well, I'll give you this guitar. This is what he did to me. He'd say, well, I'll give you this guitar and you can hang on to this for a while I fix your guitar. Or you can keep it. Most of the time we kept it. Okay? He had some guitars there, and that's how I got to know a little bit about, and that's how I got to learn about the difference between humbuckers and single coils is by, this guy fixing one of my Strats for me, and then he gives me an SG, okay, and I'm practicing that for a while he's working on my Strat, and I'm like, this SG is really different, me. But anyway, and I began back when my wife and I used to fight over money and fight over who has the most toys all the time. I learned back then the difference between one Strat to another. And I found out that I'm not all that hot and horny over, Fender Strats. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what's called textbook sound. Fender Strats have a textbook sound and a textbook feel. And they sound great, but they don't feel that great. Like Ibanez to me, and Ibanez is where I was headed at that time. I was headed towards Ibanez. I wanted to become an Ibanez freak. And because one of the first Ibanez I ever played was thinner than my finger. That guitar was so thin. It was thinner than my finger. That's how thin it was. The body of that guitar was thinner than my finger. But I found out over the years, that I'm not really into thin, super thin guitars that are like as thin as, a sheet of glass or something like that. And Ibanez is just known for guitars that are thin and guitars that have all kinds of weird shapes and stuff like that. I love Ibanez. I think one of these days when this guitar behind me, I have a prototype of that made into a signature guitar for myself. I think I'm going to see if Ibanez can do it for me, because I love Ibanez's work. I love the sound of their guitars, and the Telecaster that I had in my possession was an Ibanez. And it had some twang. Was it an Ibanez? Yeah, I think it was an Ibanez. I played a lot of Ibanez's. This guy, this old man, Bill, that used to let me borrow a lot of his guitars. He had a lot of Ibanez. You know, the older models. This was an older Telecaster. And I will admit, it wasn't until recently that I thought about the sound of that Telecaster. It really was different, and like this guy on here says, if you are not into the twang, you ain't got to worry about the twang unless you know how to twang. I agree with that, because there were only certain things I played that I was like, I'm not really into the twang. You know, like if I was like playing chords, you know, those chords sounded just as clean as my Stratocaster sounded. They sounded just as clean as the SG sounded. But if I started plucking notes, and that's where the difference of all these guitars is. It's when you play the single notes. The chords are a given, but the single notes is what makes the difference between one pickup to another. I watched a whole queue of videos yesterday, and this is where I begin to get into YouTube. I watched a whole series of hold on, ladies and gentlemen. I want to go to Slash here. I need to go to Slash here. In this video, Slash shows what's his name? Gibson TV, his guitar collection. And I was looking at this, and I began to get a little ticked off, because this is ridiculous. But let me finish first saying that I did my research. I've been doing my research lately on P90s, single coil. Well, single coils. I'm done with single coils. I have a Fender Squire over there in the case. That's a very good one, and I had them do things to it to make sure it's, you know, they did some work on it before they sold it to me. And I have this bad boy behind me. I'll show you a picture of that in a second. You know what that is. I only have one guitar that's not in the case. All the rest of my guitars are in cases. This one here is out all the time because this is my baby. This is going to one day be my signature when I have it redone. And like I said, I'm probably going to try to get either Ibanez or I'm probably going to try to get Ibanez to help me create my signature guitar one of these days. And I know what I want my signature guitar to be like. It's going to be a cross between this guitar, the Schecter Tempest Custom. It's going to be a cross between that and the Revstar. It's going to be somewhere in between that. I'm really looking at that Revstar, and I'm starting to get a desire to demonstrate one. I'm not saying that I would want it to replace my my Tempest, but that Revstar is calling me. It's calling my name. I love the way that guitar looks. That's always the beginning. And I love, I think the Repstar has P90s on it. See, I'm not too crazy about P90s. I played the P90s on a uh, Nighthawk, Gibson Nighthawk. They had when they were selling, they were trying to get rid of it, and they were using it as a amp item to sell their. They were using it as an amp item to sell um, other guitars. Okay, but it was just there sitting there with the amps, and the Nighthawk and the Blues Hawk have never ever been really great guitars for Gibson. They never really made the profits that Gibson was hoping that they would make. For some reason, I don't know. I think the Blues Hawk is awesome. I still want one, even if I get one used. And I want the old one, the one that has the Vari tone and all that on. I don't want the new one. I want the older one, and so I'm not going to get it new because it's definitely going to be out of print, and it's already out of print. They just took the Blues Hawk out of print again. Hopefully they'll bring it back again. I think that you shouldn't just make stuff for thousands and millions of buyers, but you should make things for the buyers that are in the 100 pocket too. But I'm not too crazy about P90s. I learned from that Nighthawk at the Guitar Center that night that I'm not too crazy about P90s. Now the mini humbuckers, I probably tried them. I probably, my friend Bill probably had one in my hands, and I'm thinking they're just humbuckers. I didn't know they were mini humbuckers. I thought that they were just smaller looking on the outside. The cavity inside was probably bigger or something like that. I probably played mini humbuckers before without realizing that I played mini humbuckers before. But the thing is, I like the sound via YouTube. I love the sound of the mini humbuckers opposed to the P90s. The mini humbuckers have a little bit of a softer sound than the humbuckers, but they hold the hum better than the P90s, and they seem cleaner than the P90s as well. So they're like right in between. The P90s are basically more in competition with the single coils. The mini humbuckers are a step up from the single coils. Now, to me, I can understand a guy having a guitar that has P90s or mini humbuckers with Vari tone. Okay, yes, that's a guitar that if you're a musician and you're worried about the studio, I think you should have a guitar like that. Okay, I can understand you having mini humbuckers, single coils, and humbuckers, and you have three guitars that have Vari tone. Within three guitars, you have Vari tone. You have like a Les Paul. You have like four knobs there. You have like your two volumes and two tones or something like that configuration. You have mini humbuckers, you have single coils, and you have P90s within three guitars, and you have different control over the pickups, and you have a Vari tone and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that would be a reason to have at least three guitars. But like this, I mean, look behind him. This is a cult. This is a religion. Seriously. He's even got lights on. Well, he needs them for the camera because he's in a warehouse. And, you know, I'm pretty sure there's a light that blows up, that opens up light to the whole warehouse, but he didn't want to put that on. He just wanted to make it look exotic by having these little blue lights in each, you know, case. I think there's 10 guitars in each case, and look, they're all over the place. He has an Explorer, he has a copy. He has one of every guitar out there, except for Les Pauls. He has, and we're talking Slasher. He has like every Les Paul that's ever been invented, and he has like so many of every Les Paul that's ever been invented. Eric Clapton was the same way about Fender Strats. Like, he has a collection. It's not nearly as big as Slash, but he has a collection of Fender Strats. One of the things that bothers me about Fender Strat and Gibson Les Paul is that you can have a Fender Strat and you can go get that same exact Strat, okay? Same thing with Les Paul. You can buy a Les Paul and then buy that same exact Les Paul, year, make, and model, specifications, everything down the middle equal, and it's not the same Les Paul. It's not the same Fender. Are you kidding me? Now, either we're talking about a ripoff. This is bad, you know, this is bad product performance. This is bad quality in a product, first of all, from the main company, Gibson, okay? Bad product. This is either bad product quality or this is a sales pitch, okay, to get you to buy, you know. And, like, whenever I go into, and everybody's like this, whenever you buy, now, I gotta admit, I'll admit that when I play a Strat versus the guitar that's behind me, I'll show you what it looks like in a minute. When I do that, I play different on my Strat. Like, when I'm playing my Strat, even though I think the single notes sound better on humbuckers, it's all about the single notes. If you're in the clean tone, all these guitars sound good playing chords, but it's the single notes that sound really different. And I realized last night that all the, like, P90s and mini humbuckers, like, when you're playing single notes, they really are almost completely identical until you play the single notes and you go ding and hit all 6 strings, and then you hear the difference between the P90s and the mini humbuckers. The mini humbuckers are cleaner than the P90s. Matter of fact, the humbuckers are cleaner than P90s when it comes to playing simple chords, okay? P90s, like I said before in the last video, P90s seem to be like all over the place when you're playing chords to me. But I noticed yesterday when this guy was playing single notes on the P90s, that the P90s really have a hollow, really what's the word, pronounced sound when it comes to playing single note solos. And their sustain that they put out is pretty interesting too. But again, I think the mini humbuckers got them beat in all 4 corners. Like, the mini humbuckers are just better if you're going to look for something any softer than a humbucker. Now, the guitar behind me, my baby, best guitar I've ever had, and it didn't cost me. Matter of fact, I had a PV that cost more than this guitar, and it warped on me some kind of way. We tried to go in there with the truss rod and see if we could fix it. I had a friend of mine that's good at this stuff try to help me put it back. No. So I gave it to Bill. Bill couldn't see where the sixth string kept going out of tune easily, like it just kept going out of tune, and something, it wasn't really in the string, it was in the in the neck, something in the neck. So we would adjust the truss rod, and we're like, oh, we got it fixed. And then after you play it for a while, it, you know. So I was glad to get rid of that guitar. I gave him my PV, which that's another guitar that kind of showed me the difference in pickups, because it had a humbucker, and that's why I loved that PV, because, and I have a quart in the closet over there that has the same configuration as that PV. It has 2 single coils and a humbucker. This PV also had 2 single coils and a humbucker. Now, when you go to the next position where the humbucker was, that's when the sound really began to thicken and soften. But the single coils sounded kind of gritty. Other than me having an LG for a while, this guitar behind me, my Schecter Custom Tempest, is the first guitar I've ever had with double humbuckers. And I love that tone. I'm happy, I'm comfortable with that tone. And I hardly ever, like, even if I'm in, whether I'm in, you know, the neck position, the middle position, or the bridge position, I hardly ever worry about my sound when I'm practicing. I might worry about my sound when I'm performing. When I was in church on that guitar, I would remind myself. But I am so content with that sound of this guitar that I am so content with the sound that if I'm playing something, it doesn't matter. Especially once I plug it into my board. But then when I plug it into my board, and you know, sometimes it sounds different than it sounded last week, and I'm thinking something's missing. Oh, I'm in the first position. I'm in the neck position. Let me go down to the middle position. Boom. And that's where, you know, your pickups and your toggle switching that come in handy. And then the other thing, I have a coil splitter or coil tap. Coil tap is the appropriate word. I have a coil tap on this guitar, and when I first bought it, I was like, "What's this? Clickety, 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 clickety. What is it? What is it?" And then one day I was practicing, and I used to jam with my daughter. My daughter is a guitar player too, my youngest daughter. And we were jamming one time, and we were doing this worship song. And I found out, instead of using my effects board to keep switching between, you know, a lightly distorted sound and a smooth sound, all I had to do was pull that coil tap. And that not only softened the volume, but it also felt like it was taking a little bit of distortion. It feels like it's taking a little bit of distortion out of the sound. Okay? And so instead of me, you know, using my foot, you know, and creating a more, you know, reverberable chorus flanger type of effect to switch over to, I've already got all that in this lead sound that I'm using. All I got to do is hit the coil tap on my guitar, and it gives me a different version of that sound. So that's where I begin, back when I used to jam with my daughter, that's where I begin to understand how that coil tap works. Okay? Now, when I was playing with my pastor in the worship team, I hardly ever touched the coil tap. But there were times when, um, we were jamming, and, the pastor wanted me to, like, soften up on my playing in that, in between bridges and stuff like that. So what I would do is I'd hit that coil tap. Now, most of the time when I'm practicing, I don't use it. But it really comes in handy when you're playing out and you're in a rut to where you need to soften your sound. Because, again, it also cuts the volume in half. And it does hum a little bit and give you more of a more grimy sound some way, a softer sound in some way. And depending on what effects you're using, it affects that too. Um, you know. So, I thought the coil tap on this guitar would be, there it is there on my shoulder, see there? That's my baby. I call it my big white mama, because it's the biggest guitar I've ever played too. I just recently was a Strat person. But I realized, it took me a while to realize that Strats got a lot of hum to them. Like, there's a lot of, I remember when I was in church, and I didn't start playing in church until I bought this guitar here. And probably about less than 5 years after I bought this guitar, I'm in a worship band at church. And we're all turning our amps off in between songs, because when you play single coils, there's that hum. But for me, this guitar, and then in my board, I have a threshold. I have a RU1 by Digitech, and I use my board all the time. And I'll talk about that in a minute too. I use my board all the time, and I have two main places on there. One's the acoustic version. There's three effects I use. One is the house. One's called house, and what it is it is like compression, reverb, delay, and maybe a shot of chorus, and it makes the guitar sound really, really soft the way they blend them together. Another one is called Acousticism or something like that, and it causes there is no chorus. I mean, not chorus. No compression in the sound. It's kind of just flat. The sound is kind of dark and flat, but it's very acoustic, and that's why it's called like that. And then there's one called Brother, and this is the Deroy Crews effect. I didn't make it. When I make effects, they sound. I've made effects over the years on different processors, and for some reason, the next day I'm bored with it. But this here has an effect that I use for everything that's called Brother. And it has the perfect place of acoustic sound with a little bit of a distorted sound, just enough. And my pastor at my church, he loves that sound. When I first used it in church, I didn't know, I was using the two acoustic sounds on my board. I was afraid to use the Brother, But when I used the brother, the pastor was like, you had just the right amount of distortion in the song. Like, that was really neat. Like, whatever effect you were using, I says, oh, that's one of my little tricks, in my board called brother. And I practice on it at home when I want to like work on my lead lines and that. But it's the first time I played it in church. And he was like, it's nice, it's good, you should like play it more often. I was like, oh, cool. And that's my sound. So my sound is, and just the other day I was practicing, and I hit the brother, and it was like bam, that's my sound. So my guitar right here and that brother sound on my RU, that's my sound. That is my sound. Okay? And I stay in the middle position on this guitar. Okay? Now the bridge position is kind of hollow. It's really good if you want to bring up the distortion a notch and put a little bit more power into the single notes. The bridge position is good for that. But the middle position on any guitar, actually, is always warm. And I love the warm. I'm warm. My very first guitar only had one pickup on it. Okay? And it was one humbucker, and it was just warm. Okay? And this is one of the only guitars that I have that comes close to that first sound, to where I just have that one warm tone. And if I put this guitar in the warm position, and if I put it in the middle position, it reminds me of the very first guitar that I ever owned. I just love this guitar. But again, moving on, I think it's ridiculous to have the same guitar, to buy the same guitar twice. Like, I'm not going to buy another. Okay, like this one's white. I could go and buy another Tempest Custom that's like the color of this. They have one that's exactly like the color of this Les Paul right here. Okay. It's like the Cherry Burst or the Sunburst. The Sunburst or Cherry Burst, whatever. And that was the first one I was looking at. But the white one really, really was calling my name. I think the Sunburst one that looks like this Les Paul is the best looking one, but the white one was calling my name. And voila, there it is. The white one was calling my name. And a lot of my friends and people who have watched me perform on stage, they just love the color. And I'm thinking, you see guitar players all the time. I'm a burst person. I love the burst, whether it's, sunburst, cherry burst, lavender burst. I love bursts, They were like, you look good with the white. The white looks good on you. That white really stands out. And so, dang, when I make that into my signature, it's going to be white like that. There's some things on there that I want to change as far as bindings around the neck, the size of the headstock. The headstock is just too Schecter for me. I mean, that headstock looked like it's a weapon. Okay? It looks like, who was it? Dimebag. When they made the Dimebag guitar, they made it so that you could protect yourself with it. Okay? That's what this headstock on this guitar looks like. It looks like, look out, I don't want to poke you in your eye, and call it self-defense. Okay? Don't talk to my girlfriend. Okay? You know what I mean? Because I got horns on the top of my, on my neck, on my headstock, but I love that guitar. I want to put like a more Epiphone type of headstock on it, and I want the binding around the guitar, you know, the neck to show better. Um, and I've had it for around 10 years so far, I think. Because I had it for 5. I told you 5 last video, but it's been around 10. Because I had it for 5 years before I ever played it out. Okay? So it's been around 10 years I've had this guitar. I got it back in 2010. I finally got it out of the shop. Before 2010, I believe. Yeah, I think I've had this guitar ever since 2010. We're headed to 24. Somewhere in there, somewhere between 2007 and 2010, I got this guitar. And I also realize now that I've moved probably about 4 times since I've gotten this guitar. I've probably moved about 4 times. And I've had this guitar in storage while I was moving. But I would only leave it in there a couple days. You know, especially with rain and moisture and stuff like that. I would take it with me, like when I had my stuff in storage in between moving from one place to one place. I had this guitar locked in the case, locked in the car, or I had it over a friend's house. My pastor had it at his house for a while. He had it at the church. I did not like leaving this guitar in places where it could be damaged because it is my best guitar. I really love this guitar. I'm so happy with it. And it's not expensive. It's very inexpensive. Like I said, I've had guitars that were more expensive and they were bullcrap, okay? They were junk, okay? Or they turned out to be junk. And wear and tear, oh my God. Let's not even go there. And Slash shows that here. He's got guitars. He showed you where he took guitars out of the case. And the minute he started, like, he spent a year, you know, playing them to death like he does. They just, you know. But he likes the wear and tear. He likes to break them in. He likes the wear and tear. I don't like that. I like good looking guitars when I'm on stage. I like my guitar to stand out, and I like keeping my guitar looking brand new. I like keeping it looking brand new. My very first guitar, I played it on stage a couple times, and the neck looked horrible because everywhere where I played the most, there was holes, potholes, you know, showing up on all over the neck. And they're like, what is that, a little design or tattoo on your neck? And I was like, no, that's where I play the guitar too much. You know, I need to learn how to play higher up the neck. You know, you can tell where I play most of the time. But I didn't know you could go take those to a music store and have that puttied and make it look brand new. You know, like you never gouged out the neck. I didn't know you could do that. And when I sold the guitar, I loved that guitar, and it was so lightweight, and it had a black finish on it that was so shiny you could brush your teeth. I used to look at myself before, you know, a session, pick it up and look at myself, you know. And back then I had more hair, so I used to fix my hair and, you know, look at my teeth and make sure I was looking good for the session. Okay, that's how shiny that guitar was. It was a Crews, but it was a very, very, very nice guitar, and it had a very, very clean tone to it. And back then I had the 9000S by Zoom 9000S, and I take that back. The RU1 is by Zoom as well. I love Zoom products. I've always loved Zoom products. I love Digitech. And I love Boss, but I love Zoom. Zoom, that's my company. I love their products. I love all their products. Okay. This is Zoom, and so was my. I had a Boss. I had a Boss processor that cost me almost $1,000. Okay, and it was competitive to every pedal out there and everything. But there was so much electronics cramped into that thing that it just uh, it just died on me one day. It just died. It started having a seizure. I mean, it started having a heart attack. It just died. It started making noise one day, and I couldn't make it stop, and I had to unplug it and plug it back in. And then found out the pedals wouldn't work, and it was a mess. And my daughter still has that thing, and I've had people offer to pay for it. I mean, offer to fix it. Because they're into that stuff. They said, "Well, what year was it? I can fix it. Give it to me. You should have gave it to me." And I said, "Well, if my daughter wants to give it to you, I'll let her give it to you." But I says, "What are you charging me to fix it?" And he was like, "Well, we'll see when I fix it." I'm like, "No, that's not the answer I'm looking for. Because whatever's wrong with it, okay, I'm not going to pay more than the value of the instrument itself." So, the thing cost me around $700. No, nine. I think that thing cost me around $900, and it lasted me 5 years before it just started having a cardiac arrest on me. And every time I plugged it back in, it went back into a seizure. Okay. Okay. I had to get rid of it, so I had my daughter store it for me. I said, "Hold on to this until I get it fixed." I never got it fixed. Um, because like that old Ford Fusion I had, you got to take it back to the dealer to get it fixed properly. Okay. And it's going to cost you. Okay, so that's the difference between having processors and pedals. Like if you have a bunch of pedals, if one of your pedals start acting up, well, that's just one pedal you got to replace. If you have a processor and it starts acting up, that's everything you got stored in there, all the hard work and effort, all your creation that you put in there, the sounds you created and all like that, all your precepts and all like that, say goodbye. That's why some people don't like processors, because they know they tend to be disposable. The whole thing is disposable if you play it enough. If you're really having a great time and enjoying your music and you're making a career out of it, everything is disposable. Your most expensive and best guitar is disposable. Your rig is disposable. Everything's disposable. So, but see, I believe that you can have one guitar. Like if you're a Les Paul freak, you play 4 or 5 different Les Pauls and you say, "This is my Les Paul." Okay? And when it starts to wear and tear, you can go to the shop. The shop down here where I live. Let me know that. You can take it to the shop. If you take it soon enough, you can take it to the shop and have it repainted. If a guitar is your best guitar, it's your best work or one of your best work, take it to the shop and have it painted. Okay, have it, refurnished. It's all just wood and stained metal and string wire, whatever. It can all be refurnished. And if you spent $1,000 or more on the guitar, when you get it completely refurnished, it's going to cost you less than the value of the guitar. Why you need to let your guitar fall apart like that, Slash, and look like look like that is beyond me. You're up on stage, you know, these are your best guitars that you've ever played. Why don't you keep them looking brand new? You can do that. Now, I've had this for 10 years, and obviously I haven't played it as much as I've wanted, but I played it enough for it to wear and tear, and you know what? It has not worn and tear. And there's something about the maple on that guitar that is almost imperishable. I won't know this until I've had it for a while. Okay? But, you know, I've complained in other videos about how this guitar doesn't have that much wood showing. Okay? But yet, at the same time, the maple cap on there and the maple around the whole body of the guitar, and even on the back of the neck, you know, the maple paint and cap. Well, the maple paint and the wood seem to be imperishable because there's enough maple and lamination on there to keep it from looking like Slash's guitars. I don't know. But when it does begin to wear and tear, I'll be glad because it'll let me know what its weaknesses are, and it'll be honest about them. Or I should say, she'll be honest about it when she starts wear and tear. And I can get her refurnished. Okay? Now, in closing, I don't believe in having thousands of guitars to the point where I have to buy a housing for all my guitars alone. Guitars change every year. Instead of having a collection of guitars, what you need to do is when guitars change every 5 years, see what else is out there, and you know, you can have up to 5 guitars, I think, but your best one, just keep it refurnished or trade it in for whatever guitar in the books have replaced it. Just like there's a replacement for this guitar. And it's supposed to be less string tension because when they made this one, they made it where the strings are kind of tight. Now, there's a lot of other guitars in this price range where the strings are tight, and these professional musicians, they love it. Us other people, we ain't too crazy about that. But you can get the replacement to this guitar. You can get the replacement. And I'm going to go there right now. I'm going to show you my baby. Now, right there, you see my baby that's behind me. Directly behind me, right there. There's a picture of it. That's my baby. And as you can see, it has the split crown inlays with the abalone at the 12th fret. I'm totally in love. It has the 2 double humbuckers, which I found out that's my sound. I am satisfied. I wouldn't say I want to stop there, but I'm satisfied with the volume tone configuration. Each pickup, I believe, has its own volume, and the one of the pickups, one of the knobs is a tone knob, but the other 2 are volumes to the bridge and neck pickup. Okay. As you can see how far back the tailpiece is from the humbuckers and the string through. That is the reason why the strings are kind of tight. But there's a lot of guitars in this price range that represent the Les Pauls. Just another thing to separate these from Les Pauls is a trademark issue. Um, they purposely make these strings tighter, um, you know. And I like the toggle switch. Now, a lot of the newer Les Pauls and a lot of the newer guitars in general to come out today, the toggle switch is down by the volume and the tone. I like it separate up there in the corner close to my chest by itself. I love that. Again, that headstock looks like a weapon. I'm not too crazy about it. That'll be the first thing I change. But the only guitar that looks this pretty, in my opinion, is the Revstar. Is the Yamaha Revstar. That is the only guitar that I'd be willing to compete against this with. But this guitar is my baby. When I decide to have a guitar made for me, it's going to be derived from this guitar. It's going to be white. It's probably going to have a little bit of a skinnier body. It's probably going to, that maple cap is probably going to be a little bit less. But I love the arch. And, you know, I think the fretboard is going to be a little bit more radius. And there's going to be more visible stripping around the neck. But other than that, the neck is fine like it is. I think that's rosewood. Don't quote me. And on the back of that, it has the belly cut. I love the belly cut. I can't understand why you would make any guitar in this world without a belly cut. Every guitar I've ever had the belly cut except the SG and the Les Pauls. Shame on you, Gibson. Shame on you. Shame on you. Now you get a Les Paul copy or some other configuration of a Les Paul prototype from Schecter, Ibanez, you know what I mean, Harmony, Gout, or any of them. You're going to have a belly cut. You know, you're going to have that on there. And shame on you, Gibson. Shame on you. Gibson, I'm not really in love with Gibson the way some people are. There's some guitars of theirs that I really think stand out and I would like to try them out. But one thing I will never ever do is have a collection of thousands of guitars. Okay, I will never do that. I will never have a collection of thousands of guitars. Yeah, I'll never ever have a collection of thousands of guitars. I'll never do that. It's not going to happen. You know, and I think that when we begin to enjoy something that we're playing, now I gotta admit, when I go and take songs that I've written and little runs that I've written and play them on your guitar or somebody else's guitar, it makes me want to, you know, I feel like, hey, this one guitar here, this is a keeper. But is that a reason to buy that guitar? Because, oh, I sound slightly different. Now, I can understand the difference between, again, single coils and humbuckers. I can understand the difference between a metal guitar and, you know, a guitar that's used to play metal. And it's got all this double locking everything on it, and the sound is like, you know, higher than that of a Les Paul. It's just a loud guitar. Okay, you know what I mean? And the way it looks and the way it feels, you know, it doesn't look right if you're playing blues music on it. I can understand that. I can understand that, you know, blues music being played on a 335 or something like that. Okay, and like I said, I can understand if you have like a 335 with everything on it, which one day I might do that. The Varitone, in the P90s, or the there's a guitar that I looked at last night by Ibanez that has the um was it Ibanez? No, it was Ibanez. That has the no, it was Epiphone. It was a Sheridan. It was a Sheridan, Epiphone Sheridan, I believe. Quote me if I'm wrong. Sheridan. That's a nice looking guitar, but I'm not a freak of 335s. But Ibanez has some ones out there. That's where Ibanez comes in. Ibanez has some versions of the 335 that are strictly trademark of Ibanez, and they're smaller guitars. And one of them has the Varitone and everything that the 335 has. It's a very expensive guitar, by the way, but it may be worth it. Okay? Some guitars are worth all that money because of all the hard work put into it. But if Slash has a 1959 Les Paul, why do you need 100 other 1959 Les Pauls? This is retarded. Now I can understand if the 1959 and the 1979 and the 1995 all sound different than each other in the studio, and you, without distortion or using your board, we all use our boards. We never use our naked guitars. That's another thing. We all use our sound system. We never play our guitars naked. None of us. Okay? Even when we play soft, we're using whatever chorus and flanger, or, I play this guitar here. I practice a lot of times without any board. Like, I just plug it into my amp. Matter of fact, I'm going to do that today. Just plug it into my board and put it on the clean tone, put it on the, pull the toggle switch all the way up, and boom, I got good clean sound, and it's clean, it's warm enough, matter of fact, the whole guitar is, my favorite position is still the middle position, but if I want to go softer than that, I can go all the way to the top, okay? There's no reason to have that many guitars. It's ridiculous. Okay? If you got a 1959 and you need to get another 1959 and another 1959, same thing with Eric Clapton and his obsession with Fender guitars. Like, hold up. All these guitars came out of the same year. Okay, you're obsessed with the 60s or whatever when you first started playing guitar, Clapton. Okay, oh yeah, this brings me back. Okay, oh my God, you only need one of them. Why do you need 100 of them? Now, I can see if you're afraid that they're going to go out of print. Okay, you want to keep 100 of them, maybe to sell to other people that, this fascinating guitar, or, so that you'll always have a good working one with you. I don't know. I do that with Bibles sometimes. I buy, I got Bibles here. I probably got about 7 New King James floating around here. Okay, why? Because it's a translation that they might take out of print. Okay, because Jesus is coming back soon and they ain't too crazy about that. Okay, but my point is, there's no reason for that many guitars. I don't care how professional you are. That's ridiculous. And whenever you see Slash, he's playing a Les Paul. And you don't see a difference when he's playing a 1959 or when he's playing a 1979. There's no difference. It still sounds like Slash. And like they all say, and I agree with them, your tone is in your fingers. Your tone is your own approach to the guitar. It's not really the guitar. Just like people, I had a friend who has a Les Paul. He played my guitar. He sounded like he was playing his Les Paul. Now, I gotta admit, My guitar has a lot of Les Paul features on it. You know, the double humbuckers, the way the, you know, the string through, the bridge setup and all that. That's all Les Paul copy. Okay? But um he played his guitar and then he played mine. And he sounded like he was playing his. Because why? It's in you. It's not in all. It's not in 100. You know, it's not in $1,000 million guitar collection. Slash. Oh my God! Come on, man. That's not necessary. That's not necessary. You know, but this guy, he plays a dozen guitars. Here, he plays a dozen guitars, and he decided to do this video. He's a liar, because I've seen him with his partner, and they both have their separate channels, but they're always on the channel with each other. He has a large guitar collection, but he says here, I like the video, and this is my second time watching this. If you had one guitar, which would you choose? Mine's right behind me. If you had one guitar that would play everything you needed, there it is right there. Okay? And I have a Squire over there, which I know that's not the best Fender, but I've had a quality Fender before, and it was kind of too dark, not bright enough. I wasn't impressed with it. And I have a Quart in there. Now that little Quart, it's a smaller guitar. It's kind of like the Blues Hawk or the Night Hawk. It's a smaller guitar all the way around. That Quart I got in there. This big mama behind me got competition, because the sound, the warm tone on that thing is awesome. And I bought that guitar used from Swissful Music years ago. It came about me and my wife, like I said before, me and her fighting. And I said, you know what? Let me check out that Quart, sir. And I checked it out. I said, how much does this cost? He said, well, that's actually used. I said, oh, really? Wow, you kept it nice and clean and polished pretty well. Yeah, we took pretty good care of it. I said, how much you want for this? And I took it. I bought that one. I said, all right, we out. We out. Or you want to buy the whole daggone store? Let's get out of here, you know. I bought that Quart, and I had another guitar at home when I did. And for some reason, I didn't play that Quart a lot. I don't know. And the first thing that bothered me about that Quart is, like, when you would come up here, you were really squinched up here, because it's a smaller scale guitar. It's not a 24 fret guitar. It has a smaller scale to it. But looking at the fretboard, it's not a Fender either. Because the fretboard is more like this one. To where, you know, you don't have that middle section where the frets are far apart for your fingers. Just like this one, the frets are, you know, and it's a smaller scale guitar, and so you're kind of swinched when you come up here to the, you know, the higher frets, like the 22nd fret and all like that. You're kind of squinched, okay? But it is a beautiful sounding guitar. All three pickups on there sound amazing. And it had a floating tremolo on it. That's why I don't mess with tremolos anymore. Now the Fender tremolos, the old-fashioned Fender tremolos, where you just shake the whole guitar. It's just all one piece and it's nailed into the guitar. I think those are more safer. Those last longer. But the floating tremolo bar, and I had one on my Peavey too. Well, this doesn't have a floating tremolo bar. I'm thinking of Peavey. My Peavey had a floating tremolo bar, and that thing started to get lopsided. And I showed that to somebody, and he said, yeah, it's starting to wear and tear. But you can get it fixed. You can, you're gonna have to put new screws in there and blah 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 blah. And I never bothered it. I gave it away like that. I sold it like that. Um, but I'm trying to think. I don't remember if this has a floating tremolo or not. I don't remember. All I know is that it was something wrong with it, and I tried to fix it, and now what I need, and I told the people down here at Pittsburgh Guitars, I told them, I says, I have this quart. It's, they recently came back out like 2 years ago. I don't know if it's still out now, but 2 years ago they put this back on print. This quart that I have, they put it back on print. One of my favorite guitar promoters here on YouTube showed where he actually played that small guitar with his big self. He's a big dude. I can't believe he was able to, he hit it pretty well. How swinched he got, but it is a beautiful guitar, and it does have a beautiful sound, and the pickups are amazing, and I don't know what it costs, and it's a little bit heavy too. It's heavier than this guitar. It ain't Les Paul heavy, but it's heavier than this. This is about like a 7 pound. This guitar feels like it's about 7 pounds. I think my quart is about 8. But I can't wait to get it fixed. What I got to do is I got to put the tremolo back in the box and put new strings on it, and it's good to go. Like I said, it's a good guitar. And so I have that guitar. I have my Fender Squire over there, and I have and when I play that Squire, I understand the Fender. The only thing is about the Squire is because it was made in, I don't know if it's Indonesia. I think it's Indonesia. The Squire. No, this was made in Indonesia. The point is, the Squire is made outside the country. Okay. It's made in one of them Asian countries, Japan, Indonesia, one of them. It's on the continent of Asia. Okay. That Squire does not sound like trademark Fender, and that's what I like about it. It sounds like it has a more softer, brighter tone than your average Fender. Now, Eric Clapton, he likes that dark tone, and the darker the better for him. Okay, he's still living. I haven't been keeping up with him for a while. I know that last time I seen him, he was old, and he's been going through health problems. Matter of fact, when I get off of here, I'm gonna look him up. But again, I can understand if you have a guitar where all the pickup configurations are different on each guitar. I can understand if you have a guitar where each guitar is a different size. You got one guitar that's about the size of a blues hawk. You got another guitar that's about the size of a 335, okay, with a Bigsby tremolo and all that junk. And then you have a simple Strat. Okay, I can understand that. I can understand, pickups, guitar sizes, maple neck versus rosewood. I can understand if you're recording, which I'm not. Well, I have, but I'm not doing it on a regular basis. I can understand if you're recording, okay, of having more than one guitar. But even my boy, what is his name? Lincoln Brewster, good Christian musician, one of my favorites. He's really a radical guitar player. Even him, he showed his collection, and I'm thinking, dude, quit lying to yourself. You know that Out of that whole collection, you're going to play 1 to 3 guitars. You're going to practice with one. You're going to play one out on the stage. Everything else is for show. Why are you telling people this fake gospel? Nobody needs that many guitars. And when you teach this mess to kids, okay, they're so busy buying guitars and begging mom for more guitars. And even a lot of these single guys, like I said, you know, like when I was married, I was lucky to have one guitar. Okay? You know, but, I mean, a lot of single men out there, okay, that are musicians will stay single. They will die alone. You notice that musicians don't, most of them don't get married very well. If they do get married, they go through divorce and they go through all these breakups and all that kind of stuff because they put too much time into buying guitars and doing guitar stuff, including going around and signing autographs and blah, 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 blah. They don't have no time for the wife, and so the wife is about to either cheat on them, leave them, or whatever. It's just unnecessary. One guitar, and if you play a bunch of guitars, you want to borrow some guitars like I did, okay? And that's how I got to learn what I like, because I borrowed a bunch of guitars and played them all back to back. Played all my songs on all these guitars. And that's how I came up with this. Okay? But there's no excuse for the same make, model, and year to sound different than the same make, model, and year. That's something wrong on Gibson's part. Clapton and Slash shouldn't have to buy, and that's Fender too. Clapton and Slash shouldn't have to buy the same guitar over and over again because each one sounds different when they're the same make, model, and year. There's something wrong with that picture. That is bad business, and Yents are making a religion out of it. Okay, Slash done made a religion out of it. Okay? But that's bad business. That means that you didn't really do your guitars right. Why are they sounding so different that we can tell? Oh, a little niche in the pickup there, or a little one sounds a little bit louder than the other. Yeah, we don't need to unpack the guitar and break it apart and rebuild it for that. But I'm saying though, when you can sit there and play and tell that this guitar sounds totally different than this one, so you need both of them. They're both the same make, model, and year. Then you're working with the wrong company. And you know they only do this with Gibson and Fender, and they only do this with the Les Paul and the Stratocaster. They don't do this with the, well, they do it with the SG sometimes. I have seen, yeah, they do it with the SGs. There's a guy on here who is an SG freak, and he has like about 5 or 10 SGs. Usually he has one for the last 5 or 10 years. You know, as they mess with the SG. And then there's a guy on here. There's also a guy on here who, and it's Fender again. There's a guy on here with Telecasters, and he has a whole collection of Telecasters. And I'm thinking, okay, stop. Okay. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Again, I can understand sizes of guitars, differences in pickups, difference in electronics and stuff like that. And I can understand 2 or 3 guitars, but thousands of guitars? And half of them all are the same year, make, and model? What kind of cult is America into? Like, this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, man. I'll never ever have that many guitars. You know, when I had all those guitars, you know, because the guy was letting me borrow them, I gave them back, and he said, you can keep them longer if you want to. Did you find out what you want? I says, yeah, I'm going to buy this one off you, but take it until I get the money. Um, I'm going to buy. No, he says, no, it's an even trade. So I gave him my PV. I said, oh, snap. And now back in the day, um, as you get older, you change. Now, this looks nothing like the Tellman series. The Tellman series was my very first mission. And the same guy that sold me other guitars, my friend Bill, that I've been talking about in the course of this video, he sold the lipstick Tellman by Ibanez. Like I said, I've always been an Ibanez freak ever since and I never owned an Ibanez. I played plenty of them, but I've never owned one. Okay? I've played plenty of them in the stores and other people's Ibanez, but I've never owned my own. Okay? But this guy, he sold, the Ibanez. He said he was going to sell the Ibanez Tellman. And I had a guitar of his that I had. I was going to give it back and take the Tellman. He says, well, I don't know, man, because I did this work to it and all like that, and it's a really preferred guitar. Everybody wants it. And I says, okay, well, I'll give you this guitar back, and I'll pay you whatever the difference is, because I want that Tellman. And my friend Karen went and bought it. She went straight cash, and she bought it, and my heart was broken, and and that was my first fascination. I wanted that Ibanez Tellman. I remember PRS had that one. What's that one long guitar? It looks like I forget what it was called. I wanted that guitar. That guitar is huge. That guitar makes me look like a midget. Like the midget I am. Like, you know what guitar I'm talking about. PRS came out with a guitar one time. They stopped making it. And me and my daughter both wanted that guitar, but my daughter was more into the more Les Paul looking types of PRSs. But this one here, I forget what it was called. But it looks really, really different. And I wanted that guitar. And then I went from there to the Tellman. And I started getting into BB King. And I started looking at the 335. But what happened with the 335 is I actually picked up one in the music store. And it was heavy. And it was huge. Yeah, pianos and stuff. I told the guy, I just want to hold it. And I held it and I didn't like it. I was like, no, I didn't even plug it in. It was heavy. And I didn't like it. And I just put it away. But see, that's the kind of guitars that I'm interested into next. I'm into, Varitone. I want to, a lot of people criticize the Varitone. I think I'm going to fall in love with it. I wanna go Varitone. I wanna check out, mini humbuckers, that kind of thing. I played P90s once, and I played other P90 guitars by accident without realizing that I was playing P90s. I thought everything was humbuckers. Okay. And I played plenty of single coils, but this here double humbucker configuration really took me away, and it has made me make, now I'm not a little boy in a candy store anymore. I know what kind of guitars I play, what kind of guitars I like, and I know where I want to go. I know exactly what candy I'm looking for. I'm looking to go to Varitones, and maybe mini humbuckers. And I'm looking to just try them out. And if I can't find a sound that is totally warmer. It would have to make this guitar right here sound like junk in order for me to invest my money into it. If the sound is only a little bit cleaner or a little bit softer or whatever, that's not a reason to, add 900 more dollars to my bills. That's not necessary. See, that's the thing. Like, you don't just buy another guitar because every little tiny little note that might sound different, or every little tiny, click in a progression or something, or feel or something that might sound different. And I can tell you right now, the best feel that I've ever had is, first of all, the Ibanez Strats. Second, the Fender Strats are the second best feel. This here does not feel as wealthy, as great as, a Stratocaster to me. The best feel I've ever had were Ibanez Strats. I mean, it's just like the guitar is not even there. I can only feel the strings. I mean, that's how soft and light and thin those guitars can be. This right here, though, I've gotten used to it. It's become my baby. And I've grown out of just wanting to be soft and no weight and single coiled and everything soft and thin. I've grown out of that. I'm into the instrument now, and not so much just in the way it looks, and not so much just in the way it feels, but I'm also into the music. I'm into the instrument. I'm into an all-around great instrument that's good enough. People don't understand. In our genre of guitars, we have this worship of electric guitars where we forget that electric guitar is an instrument. And if you've ever seen a guy or two play guitar in a choir, or play guitar behind an orchestra, like Steve Vai or something like that, you realize that all this sales pitching, all this marketing is junk compared to that. One guitar kept up with all those horns and pianos and keyboards and all that stuff in the orchestra. One guitar. And when you watch something like that on TV, I watched a guy come to my church one time. They were from Africa. This guy, and this is where I began to investigate the Les Paul, because this guy had a Les Paul. He treated that Les Paul like Les Paul was his mama. Okay? He'd sit there and look at it in between sessions. He'd sit there and play without any music. He loved that Les Paul. Okay? I watched him, how well he played for the choir. I mean, he did a fantastic job. It was him and the drummer and the keyboard player. And the keyboard player was already there when he got there. Okay? But all the bridge cuts and the solo cuts and all the fill-ins and riffs and all like that, plus all the basic roots of the chords and that playing it the way they're used to singing it, was all done on that Les Paul. And that's where I begin to go back and look at the magazines and that, Guitar Magazine and that, and start reading up on the Les Paul. And I went to the music store shortly after meeting this guy. Well, this was later on when I decided to pick up the guitar. I didn't decide to pick up the guitar until I was 23 years old. It came from a deal of me and my ex, trying to get a band started and that. So I wanted to learn how to play. And I knew that I would do good because the out of all the instruments in the world, I was impressed with the electric guitar. Listening to people like B.B. King and Hendrix. Okay, I knew that I wanted to learn how to play the electric guitar. I was just dragging my feet about it until we decided that, we were being called to, be a band. And then, I decided to start taking lessons in that. And I was already in the band, okay, being a mastermind before I took lessons. I'm sitting in the audience and I'm telling the dude, hey man, you think you can teach me lessons later? He's just like, yeah, after you get done doing your set, yeah, I'll teach you lessons. And that's the way it was. I learned on my own. The first song I ever played was Jesus is the Sweetest Name I Know. And I was so excited about the song, I forgot the bridge. I forgot the entire bridge going back to the chorus. And I got up there and sang it, and they were like, you left out the bridge, right? I was like, oh, snap. I got so excited about, I did not know I didn't know a single note. I played the whole song in thirds. I didn't know nothing about chord theory, scales, notes, nothing. I just was monkeying around on that shiny black Crews guitar that I had, my very first guitar. And I played that song, and that was the song that I played whenever I would go to music stores and all like that. I played it for John Trigar, the guy that sold me the guitar. He's like, I thought you said you didn't know how to play. I said, I know how to play this song. This was easy. I learned how to play this one, But I'm going to get out of here. I just think that if you really want to learn how to play the guitar, go to your local guitar store and pick up a bunch of guitars. Pick up about 4 or 5 guitars in your price range. And before you go to the music store, look them up online and go to YouTube and listen to reviews on them and stuff like that. But don't just settle for the review. Continue to go and play these guitars. Play about 5 guitars in your price range. Play the mini humbuckers. Play the P90s, the humbuckers. Play, single coils. Play a 335. Play a Fender Strat. Play an SG. Just practice with different guitars and take about 10, 20, 30 minutes to practice each one. Spend some time in a music store. And then once you get the guitar of your choice, be careful about watching 100 YouTube videos, and be careful about what you get in the mail, and be careful, because it's all a strategy to sell guitars. A lot of these guys here on YouTube, you wonder, like, okay, you're just demonstrating a guitar. How do you have all those guitars on the wall behind you? Because a lot of these musicians are promoting instruments. And if you go to their website, if you subscribe and you go to their website or whatever, they have stores for you to go and buy guitars. They will tell you where to go to get the guitars that you sing in the video, that they played in the video, okay? But a lot of these studios are inside Guitar Center. I ran into celebrities at Guitar Center, okay? And they have these studios that ain't nobody allowed in there, but, while you're buying a guitar, they're in there doing YouTube videos, okay? And they're not letting you know that they are at Guitar Center doing a music video. They're not letting you know that. They're in a back room, and they're not telling you, okay, how do you have all those guitars on the back wall? Like, are those all yours? If you can see here, these guitars are for sale. But when you listen to these guys, they don't tell you that. They don't want to discuss to you that, oh, I'm in the back of a music store. This is my studio where I get to promote these guitars, and I get a cut, and Guitar Center gets the other cut. Okay, that's how we make business. That's how we make money. They don't tell you that. They just tell you, oh, you know, oh, if you're going to play this guitar, you got to have this guitar too. And you know what? I can't just have single coils. I have to have humbuckers. And I can't just have a Fender, but, you know, this Gibson right here. And I can't just have Gibson, but you know what? The PRS. No. No. Stop robbing people. Stop robbing people. Just stop. Just stop robbing people. This is another one I watched right here. I watched this back in the day. And one of the guitars he mentions on here is the 335. He demonstrates. I agree with him. Because that's a guitar that's going to stand out over any regular solid body electric guitar, whether it be Les Paul or Stratocaster. Any guitar, it's going to stand out. Okay? And if you're going to play a lot of different versions of music and you're going to do your own recording in the studio and all that kind of stuff, yeah, you would probably need a 335, okay? But some of the guitars on here, I disagree with them. But anyway, I'm getting out of here. I'm just like letting this play because I'm talking, but I know this video was kind of long, but you don't need to ever be, you know, do not get into this worship of having hundreds of guitars. There's not enough time in your lifetime to actually play 100 guitars. And by the time you play, 20 of them on the stage, okay? Oh, new guitars just came out. What are you going to do with them guitars? No. Instead of buying all these guitars, what you should be doing is, like, when new guitars come out, okay, go out and see what they're about. And if they sound really, really, really that much different than what you got and you love that sound and you can afford it, okay, then go ahead. But don't do like Slash and get, this is a 1959 Les Paul. Well, what do you got there? Oh, this is another 1959 Les Paul. Oh, what you got there? Oh, I love this 1959 Les Paul. This is really unique. And what do you got there? Oh, and this is a 1959 Les Paul that I found at blah, 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 blah. And it was just like really unique to me. And what do you got there? Oh, this is a 1979 Les Paul. I got 100 of these. And there's a story for each one. Give me a bloody break. Slash. Okay? Give me a bloody break. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. And only Fender and Gibson do this. PRS doesn't do this. Schecter doesn't do this. It's all about sales pitch. It's all about, and I think celebrities, you could have bought a city for as many guitars as you got. You could buy a whole resort that goes for miles for all the guitars you spent money for in a little bit of time. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you make money by playing guitar. Don't spend all your money on guitars. And over half of them, no one will ever see you play them except for a video shoot. You're only going to play one. One is the one that you practice with, and if there's a difference, one is the one you take on stage. The rest of them are just photos. They're just collector's items. And you're spending a fortune for them. Meanwhile, there's people out there that can't afford the Les Paul. Slash. There's people out there that can't afford a good Les Paul. And here you are. Wasting them. Okay? But God bless you. I am Deroy Crews. Big D Crews on my Big T channel. Art, music, Keep up with me. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you for watching.